My mother said my choice to become a YouTuber was a waste of a career, so when I made my first millions I gave her none of it. From the moment I told my mom that I wanted to start a YouTube channel, she made it clear that she thought it was a mistake. To her, YouTube was just something people did when they were too lazy or too stupid to get a real job. Her idea of success was simplistic and boring, such as getting a college degree, having a corporate job, getting married, or having kids. I tried to tell her about all the people who made a living from gaming, vlogging, tech reviews, beauty tutorials, and everything under the sun, but every time I spoke she interrupted with a dismissive wave. That's not a real job, she'd say. Her disapproval wasn't just in her words, it was also in the way she looked at me. Whenever I brought up my channel she'd sigh like I was an embarrassment. How long do you plan to waste a career on this hobby? She'd ask. You're just trying to avoid real responsibility. When I was just starting out I showed her a video I'd filmed. She barely glanced at the screen before shaking her head. It's just you talking to a camera. Do you really think anyone will watch this? Her words stung, but I had grown used to it. She didn't just dismiss my dream, she actively discouraged it. She'd insist I get a real job every time we spoke, even after I'd hit 100K subscribers. The breaking point came a few months before I hit 1 million subscribers. I just wrapped up a huge sponsorship deal with a brand that would pay me more than any job I'd ever had, and I was buzzing, excited, but also nervous to tell her about it. Maybe this time she'd see how serious I was. I sat her down in the living room, opened my laptop, and showed her everything. How this was no longer a hobby but an actual business. Her face stayed neutral. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd finally convinced her, but then she scoffed, shaking her head with that patronizing look. You think this money will last? No one's going to care about you in a few years. It's not a real career. The words hit me like a slap. I had built my channel from the ground up. The worst part wasn't even the insult. It was how she refused to acknowledge the possibility that I might be able to make a living off of what I've been doing. That was when the seed of resentment took root. I could feel my blood boiling, but I didn't let her see it. I just smiled and said, okay, Mom. Whatever you say. I knew I had reached a point where I didn't care about her approval anymore. I started putting more energy into my YouTube career, spending sleepless nights editing videos, brainstorming ideas, refining my content. I stopped talking about my progress with her. I focused on building my brand, connecting with followers, and turning this into something real. The more successful I became, the more distant I grew from her emotionally and physically. Weeks passed, then months. The numbers on my YouTube channel exploded. I got a manager, brands sought me out, and the next major milestone came when I signed a massive deal with a tech company. My revenue had already crossed the 7-figure mark. Then one day, my mother called to tell me she was coming by to see how I was doing. My heart sank. I braced myself for the usual lecture. She said the same usual crap about my YouTube career being a frivolous hobby and that I'm putting way too much energy into something that it's not worth it. Then, the check on my desk from the tech company caught her eye. She picked it up and saw that it read $1.2 million. She stared at the check, eyes wide, as if she couldn't believe it. You actually made this much? Her voice cracked. For the first time, it looks as though she was about to muster up an apology. I refused to let her say a word as I snatched the money out of her hands. I scoffed and left her standing there in silence with nothing but her thoughts. I worked hard to prove to myself that this was the career path I wanted to take, and my mother never believed in me. In the end, I didn't need to prove anything to her. Now I'm the frivolous millionaire of the family, and she's just the mother who contributed with harsh words and bad judgment.